in this way, one affair can lead to another and another and another, because the spark of that illicit nature, that spark of that potential new relationship, but potential drop in that new relationship, it potentially not working out, can also mirror then the fear of losing the relationship you had to start with when you went in, the stable relationship. And all of that feels like a huge big swarm of butterflies. And that huge big swarm of butterflies, that can feel so exciting. But are we misreading that signal?
On Stories of Self, we go on journeys into the lives of ourselves and others. We see how stories connect, how they diverge, and how we can create our worlds and solve our problems. This is the real-life remix of storytelling, which is so often stranger than fiction. So come and sit around the fire, chill by the ocean, or get a coffee with me, as I delve into the stories of self that make, break, and remake us. Some stories are dramatic, some are serene, some will magically mirror you, and some will be delightfully different. I'm your host, Katie Reeve-Arnold, and this is Stories of Self.
A while ago, I heard something interesting, something that changed how I look at dating and relationships completely. Butterflies are untrustworthy. And I started thinking about it. If I can't trust the butterflies that I feel, that I look for, that society has always talked about being a beautiful part of a burgeoning relationship, then what do I trust? And what do those butterflies mean? If they're not telling me what I thought they were telling me, that the relationship is right, what are they really telling me? So it's interesting that we misread those signals of butterflies. I think it's really understandable because it's pushed at us through books and films and TV. It's pushed at us through music. It's pushed at us through everything, that these butterflies, these kind of tumultuous stomach effect where you're not sure what's happening and you're excited but nervous, that's pushed as being a really important part of knowing that you're attracted to somebody. And I always thought that was true. I always looked for those butterflies. If someone asked me out, if I went out on a date, or if I was chatting with someone and I didn't get those butterflies, then I thought, okay, well, this isn't the person for me then. This isn't somebody I should be dating. This person's just a friend or some other kind of acquaintance. I thought to myself, if the butterflies aren't there, then there's not really any point in us getting together. But was I right? Because what do the butterflies really mean? Do they mean that I have this excitement for this person? Or do they mean something a little bit deeper and darker? When I think about it, the butterflies actually, for me, come up when I'm uncertain of something, when I'm unsure. Let's think about it not in relation to relationships. Let's think about it in relation to other things in life, because this is how I actually recognized that perhaps I should rethink the butterfly effect in relationships too. So, in relation to other things, when I feel butterflies, it tells me to have another look at something, to have another think about something, to be a little bit more cautious, a little bit more careful. So whether it's relating to something I'm eating, I'm gluten intolerant, so I have to be kind of careful about that because otherwise I can make myself kind of sick and it's not fun. I'm not going to die if I eat gluten, not immediately. It's obviously not good for my health, but it's not fun to eat gluten and feel really ill. So when I see some food, when I'm thinking about eating a certain food and I get butterflies, well, in my stomach, well, that's me telling me I should rethink, that I should have another look at that and another think about that. Because as everybody who has some kind of food intolerance knows, the labels are not always 100% accurate all the time. There can be hidden things that we don't know are there. or that maybe the producers didn't know were there. I'm not saying it's anybody trying to feed us gluten, but accidentally these things can happen. Also in work, for example, in my job, if I'm feeling butterflies about something, that usually means that I should leave that for a little bit before moving ahead, or that I should have another look at it. Now, if I start applying this to other areas of life, when I get butterflies thinking about where I live, I'm more nervous about living there, staying in that place. I'm nervous about going there. And it's not always a negative, but it's not always a positive either. And I think this is the thing. This is where looking at how I feel about having butterflies and the actual meaning of the butterflies for me in other areas has made me refresh my opinion of how I think about them in relation to relationships and dating. Because in relationships and dating, I was taking them as a ubiquitous good thing. Always good. Every time I find someone, I should feel butterflies if I like them, and that's always a good thing. Whereas there's no other area of my life where whenever I felt butterflies, I always took it as a good thing. I took it as an invitation to look at it more, to have another think about what I was doing. And sometimes that would indicate something that I could have a think about, and it would turn into something exciting and something that I could move forward with. But sometimes it would turn into something that was kind of holding a red flag for me, something that I shouldn't move forwards with. So when I applied that idea that maybe butterflies didn't universally mean like or yay or go ahead, then I actually started to look at the relationships that I was getting into in a different way. I started to look at the people that I was talking to and dating slightly differently and started to feel something different. Maybe I opened up, actually. It opened me up a lot to relationships that didn't have butterflies naturally associated with them in the beginning. So those butterflies, they really are more a sign of nerves and of maybe something not being quite stable. They can be a sign of fear as well. They can be a sign of something that is uncertain, that you can't really rely upon. And is that what I want in a relationship? Is that something exciting that of course, there is an excitement to not knowing whether you're going to get something. There's an excitement related to wanting something that you can't be certain of. But that surely is a short-term thing. You don't want that for a long, long term, do you? It's up to you, but I don't think I do. And so really, looking for butterflies, looking for the uncertainty that they flag, was actually a repeat of a past kind of issue or trauma for me. It was me resurrecting something from the past, people I couldn't trust and people who weren't always there when I was younger, and bringing it through into the present. I was repeating a pattern that had been placed in me when I was much, much younger, as many of us do. But did I want to carry that pattern forward? Now that I had seen it, did I want to make another choice? So I'd been misreading those butterflies for a really long time. And I think that that's perfectly valid. I think we can all forgive ourselves for that, because after all, there are so many love songs about not wanting to let people go and about the drama and the ups and downs and the feelings of butterflies inside, that feeling of kind of uncertainty, that feeling of wanting something you don't know if you can have. We figure that we orientate so many of our songs and our books and our movies around this, that of course it had been posted to me, it had been presented to me as something that was an intrinsic part of attraction, part of a functional relationship. But I never found it really was. Butterflies can be fun, but actually the uncertainty isn't. So, is it possible to have butterflies, to have that kind of lightness of feeling without having the dip? So butterflies that lift but don't drop. A roller coaster that can give you that feeling of going up without dropping out from under you as it takes you down sometimes? I think there is. I really think that it's possible to have a relationship that's focused more on the spark and the lift rather than on the butterflies. But I think it's about opening up to it. I think it's about, first of all, deciding not to reject people who don't give you the butterflies immediately. Perhaps they're not giving you butterflies immediately because they're not an uncertainty in your life. Perhaps they are doing exactly what they said they would do. And in that, there's no risk. So there's no butterflies. So does that make them wrong for you? Not if they give you a spark, a lightness, a lift. If they're giving you the lift but not the drop, that doesn't make them wrong for you. That might make them even more right for you. And so opening to that can really bring something new into life. Essentially, we need to feel safe enough to open up to people. And if we don't feel safe enough to open up to people, what happens, and what happened when we were children, is that we start to naturally change ourselves and adapt what we want and what we are getting from the world in order to make sure the people stay around. Humans naturally, as children, prioritize attachment to somebody, so connection with somebody, over their own authentic self. And so that means that if the attachment or the connection to the people around them isn't stable, then they won't feel safe enough to be themselves truly. And they certainly won't feel stable and safe enough to actually create some boundaries or say no to things. So what they start to become, and what I started to become, was this people-pleasing, no-boundaried individual who just would be led by the butterflies and dictated to by the world around her. This wasn't good for me, but it wasn't good for the world either, because I wasn't bringing the wholeness of me. I changed myself and who I was bringing to each situation to try and cultivate a connection over the authenticity of who I truly was. So I wasn't being myself in the relationships. In therapy, this is called limerence. So this innate bending of the self to actually fit in with what others want, what we think others want. It's a real catch-22 actually, because we learn to do it as children because we fear that we won't have that support, that we won't have that connection, that we won't have people around us if we don't bend to fit what we think they want from us or what we assess they want from us. And then we can innately carry that as we get older and older. But what we're doing then is, as we bend ourselves to fit what we think others want, or what suggests the radar of what we're picking up from the world suggests others want from us, we're actually changing who we are. So if they did connect with us in the beginning, liking who we were truly being, all of a sudden we've twisted that and we're not truly being that person they were attracted to anymore. So now that I saw the way the butterflies could actually stop me from feeling comfortable enough to set up true boundaries relating to who I was, a true structure that allowed me to be the best of myself that I wanted to be. And I could see how the butterflies could actually mark something that maybe I didn't want, an instability that, while it felt reminiscent of the past, while it echoed some issues that I would always wish to solve from my past, it wasn't actually solving those issues. It was bringing those issues forwards into the present to repeat them over and over. And I realized I stood here in the present, actually able to make a different choice. If you want a different outcome, try a different action. And so I did. What I did was I started focusing more on that lift and spark and moving away from, as much as I could. It can be difficult, right? If someone gives you butterflies, it can be difficult not to entertain that a little bit And there's a difference between entertaining it, as in going on a date, where you're open to that connection having more lift than drop. It's different to do that versus throwing yourself in hook, line, and sinker. So much as I saw butterflies, I saw those kind of stomach twitching nerves as being something to make me take a second look at things going on in the rest of my life. I applied that same process to relationships and dating when I felt the butterflies there. And I gave it a little bit more time just to see if those butterflies were there because of the fact that I actually was uncertain, that something was not stable for me, that something was not sure, that something was not as I wanted it to be, that there was risk, that I was afraid of losing something, that I had fear rather than joy. Sometimes I think that those butterflies can be something that sparks, I guess, a desire in someone that they haven't felt for a while in a stable relationship. So in a stable relationship, often the butterflies can kind of flutter away, or sit down and not start leaping around in the same way as they used to, because we've actually found something that we can trust. That's why it's stable, right? Because it's there. It's not changing. It's not suddenly going to disappear. We've decided that we can rely on it, that we can be certain of it. And in that, the very butterflies that led us into it in the beginning can actually kind of fade away, if you like. So then, perhaps butterflies can be also something that spark affairs, because actually butterflies, when we feel them for someone else, we're kind of, it's a reminiscent thing of the butterflies that we felt with our partner in the beginning. But is this truly an attraction to a new person? Or is this actually a fear that this new connection isn't stable? Is this actually a red flag being raised by our body to say, hang on, whoa there, do you actually want this? This is exciting, but this is different. Is this different in a good way or not? Are the butterflies really just asking you to have another look, to make a choice about what you're doing rather than purely flowing with them? Because the butterflies could also be there when you connect with somebody new because you're afraid of what you might lose. In this way, one affair can lead to another and another and another, because the spark of that illicit nature, that spark of that potential new relationship, but potential drop in that new relationship, it potentially not working out, can also mirror then the fear of losing the relationship you had to start with when you went in, the stable relationship. And all of that feels like a huge big swarm of butterflies. And that huge big swarm of butterflies, that can feel so exciting. But are we misreading that signal? Is it really exciting to be potentially giving up something that you love and feel good in, and for something that you don't even know if they're going to call you? It's an interesting one. You can't apply it. It's very unique to each individual situation. And of course, you can't apply one rule across the board. But I would definitely say that what I've learned from rethinking whether butterflies are trustworthy is to actually have a little bit of a deeper look when I feel butterflies. To not just take them at face value, but to apply them to relationships and dating the same way that I apply them to every other aspect of my life. I use them as a flag to tell me to look a little bit deeper, a little bit harder, and think a little bit more about what I'm doing. And sometimes the butterflies will be a great thing, and I will take the leap. Sometimes they will lean more towards excitement than to fear. But sometimes they will actually be raising an issue for me and asking me to look deeper, so that I don't throw away something that's stable that I already have and that I love in hunt for something that is really only exciting because any moment it could be taken away. A man called B.F. Skinner spent some time looking at pigeons and rewarding them with food. He did 3 different incentive mechanisms with them. One was fixed. He gave them a peg to tap, and one tap gave one food pellet. It gave the same result every time. And so the pigeons figured this out really, really quickly, and they just didn't get excited about it. They just recognized, okay, this is how I get food. Every time I tap this, this is the result. Okay, that's fine. Move on with other things in life. They weren't that excited about it. They didn't get obsessed with it. Then another thing he tried was changing the reward so that when you tapped, sometimes you got food and sometimes you didn't. This got the animals way more excited. This got the pigeons way more excited because it was a puzzle for them to try and work out. And also it was intermittent. It couldn't be trusted. It couldn't be relied upon. This variable interval actually really kept them addicted to pecking away at this lever. They just kept tapping it and tapping it and tapping it because they didn't know when the food would come. They weren't sure of it, they weren't certain of it, so they became more and more interested in it. This is because when we get a reward for something, we also get a dopamine burst in our mind, a dopamine hit. And so actually, this kind of intermittent pattern of reward is really kind of addictive for animals. In the same way, you could think about this in relation to those stomach butterflies relating to new relationships. The intermittent reward, not knowing you're always going to get the outcome you want, is actually what would build the greatest dopamine hit and the greatest amount of butterflies. And so that would potentially keep people coming back for more and more and more. But just because it captivates their attention doesn't necessarily make it a good thing. For me, butterflies can be a good thing. They can denote excitement, but they can be something I don't want. They can denote fear. And fear and excitement can actually feel very similar, or even be mixed together. When you mix them together, it kind of feels like exhilaration. It's that kind of skydiving feeling that some people love. But when you think about the number of people that enjoy roller coasters or scary movies, maybe everybody likes exhilaration on some level or other. So in noticing that it's not always a good thing and not always a bad thing, I taught myself to recognize that butterflies actually flag a moment where I might need to pause and make a choice about what is right for me. Butterflies don't just mean go ahead, and they don't just mean go no further. Butterflies are a really important sign to pay more attention to something and to make a wise choice in a way that's right for me. Great connections with joyful lift can grow from a place where there is no butterflies at the start. And feeling butterflies might have nothing to do with the actual person I'm with at the time, and all about what or who I connect with that situation. It's different for everyone and in every situation, but in my story, it took me decades to realize that butterflies are only a road sign pointing out a potential destination. They don't indicate whether it is right for me, and when I come across the sign, I need to decide myself whether I want to go to that destination or not.
We are all telling our stories, and we are all telling ourselves stories about it all. Are you brave enough to walk with me into hearing, considering and understanding the stories we tell? Join me next time, where we'll be considering more stories and illusions and stepping into creating the freedom we desire. Every moment, we are who we are choosing to be. You choose. Choose you, because your story matters.